The Supreme Court just sent a major warning to Donald Trump, and this could mean a major curtailing of his attempts at absolute power. Strap in, folks. This is not going to go the way you might have thought. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. I'm David Reddish. Tariffs. If you're a frequent viewer of our channel, and subscribe right now if you haven't, if you're a frequent viewer, you know that I proposed that the word tariffs could well be the Global Language Monitor's word of the year. Donald Trump has, as you no doubt know, inflicted massive tariffs on nations all over the world, except for those that majorly kiss his behind and offer him gifts, in which case he lowers the import taxes or scraps them completely. But here's the element that often goes overlooked. Congress is supposed to be the branch of government that imposes tariffs, not the executive. Though presidents have adopted tariffs in the past, that only happened during national emergencies like wartime. Thus, numerous Democratic-led states and a group of businesses have sued the administration to rescind the tariffs. Here's a rundown.
It's considered the most economically significant case before the Supreme Court in decades and the ultimate loyalty test for its conservative majority. Today, justices are hearing arguments considering whether President Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs was legal. The tariffs in question are those the president put on China, Mexico, and Canada to crack down on fentanyl smuggling, punitive tariffs on Brazil and India, and the 10 to 50% reciprocal tariffs from nearly all trading partners, which Trump announced on his so-called Liberation Day.
Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that.
The administration argues the president has complete authority to set tariffs under the Economic Emergency Act, and the emergency in this case is national security, citing trade imbalances and the inflow of fentanyl. But several states and small business owners are challenging the administration, including New York-based wine and liquor importer Victor Schwartz. Plaintiffs argue only Congress has the power to set tariffs, that the Emergency Act is much more limited, and they say trade imbalances are not an emergency.
They're gloating all over all the billions of dollars that they're collecting. They think it's great. What they don't say is they're collecting it from American businesses.
So yes, the Supreme Court is now poised to validate or nullify Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, which could have a dramatic impact on the United States economy, not to mention a lasting effect on presidential power. And though the court just heard arguments this morning, we already have some idea of what to expect in a ruling, so stick around. The Senate, as you will recall, already voted to rescind Trump's tariffs, though the legislation is currently stalled in the House thanks to House Speaker Mike Flaccid Johnson's sending the House to recess amid the government shutdown. Again, for more on all that, see our other videos here on the channel. As for arguments at the High Court, Trump and Solicitor General John Sauer, who argued the case before the judges, got some major pushback almost immediately from an unsurprising source, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Why is it that Congress has always used regulate and tax together in the code? Are you telling us that with respect to its use of regulate in other statutes, the taxing reference is superfluous? They didn't need to do that?
I'm not sure what other statutes use regulate and tax together, but this statute has a specific historical pedigree going back to its enactment during World War I in 1917, where the phrase regulate importation is evoking an inherent power to tariff that became established in the 19th century in cases like Hamilton against Dillon and so forth, and that history is, I think, set forth in Professor Baumsei's amicus brief.
And if you think that's predictable, what happened next was not. Keep in mind that the reason the court has swung so far to the loony right is because of Donald Trump, who appointed 3 justices, Amy Coney Barrett, the booze hound Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch. So who would have expected Gorsuch to push back so hard on Trump's authority when it comes to tariffs?
It's a major question though. Could the president impose a 50% tariff on gas-powered cars and auto parts to deal with the unusual and extraordinary threat from abroad of climate change?
It's very likely that could be done. Very likely.
I think that has to be the logic of your view.
Yeah, in other words, obviously this administration would say that's a hoax, it's not a real crisis, but...
I'm sure you would.
Yes, but that would be a question for Congress under our interpretation, not for the courts.
Gorsuch also transparently slammed the administration for overreach as well.
In January 2023, Congress voted to terminate one of the biggest IEPA emergencies ever, the COVID emergency, and the president went along with that. So what the statute reflects is there's going to be the ability for a sort of political consensus against a declared emergency.
Well, what happens when the
unless
president
that's
simply
political discipline.
vetoes legislation to try to take these powers back?
Well, he has the authority to veto legislation to terminate a national emergency, for example. I mean, he retains the powers in the background because IEPA is still on the books. But if he declares an emergency and Congress doesn't like it and passes a joint resolution, yes, he can absolutely veto that.
Yeah,
Congress
Congress, as a practical matter, can't get this power back once it's handed it over to the president. It's a one-way ratchet toward the gradual but continual accretion of power in the executive branch and away from the people's elected representatives.
I disagree with that, and the recent historical counterexample of Congress's termination of the COVID emergency demonstrates that the political oversight
With
is
the
baked into
president's
statute. It's
assent.
meaningful.
With the president's assent, in fact,
Once he lost it by a veto-proof majority in the Senate, I think the position moved. And I
right.
think he realized, and that's the political process working. There was a political
it takes a supermajority, a veto-proof majority to get it back. Yeah. Okay. Can you give me a reason to accept it, though? That's what I'm struggling and waiting for. What's the reason to accept the notion that Congress can hand off the power to declare war to the president?
Well, we don't contend that. Again, that would
Well,
be...
you do. You say it's unreviewable. There's no manageable standard, nothing to be done. And now I think tell me if I'm wrong. You backed off that position.
Maybe that's fair to say.
Okay, all right.
That would be, I think, an abdication.
Don't you just love how Gorsuch has to mention that this administration would likely just call climate change a hoax? It seems like even Justice Gorsuch is sick of all the Trumpian stupidity. Stupidity that he helped create, mind you, by granting such sweeping presidential immunity. Again, see our other videos for more. It's not clear how each justice will vote in this case, but what we can say after the moment is that this looks like a disaster for the Trump administration. The court has rightfully had enough of Trump's authoritarian power grabs, and it looks like it will finally rein in that Orange Menace. That, coupled with the sweeping Democratic victory in last night's special elections, should give you beautiful viewers some hope. We're not out of the woods yet, not by any stretch, but there is light through the trees as Trump's master plan begins to crumble, just like his possibly syphilitic mind. This is Occupy Democrats.